So, Vennie, thanks so much for joining me. We were talking off camera. I mentioned I read Cult Child, your book, your memoir, and it was like earth shattering is probably the word I'd use for it. I think it's just so incredibly raw. Like, I think we hear a lot of cult stories, but really coming from
Yeah.
a child's perspective, like three up until I think you were 14 or 15, you know, when you got out, like, oh, it's just so, it's such a tough story, but I think a very necessary story. I think
Yeah.
like these stories have to be shared because if not, you know, other people are going to get caught up in that kind of cult world. But I want to bring it back to the start. You know, 3 years old, like, you know, your dad was working on an F-14, I think, which I found really interesting at the start and stuff. But obviously he was away working a bit. But go back there to like that early memories of childhood. Like, what was it like?
Sure. And I want to just say real quick, I'm so glad to hear your feedback because that is my intent for writing the book the way that I did, is that I wanted people to finish it and go, oh my God, like I just traveled with this child through this journey. So you really confirmed to me with your feedback. So my father was a Navy man. And I was born in 1969 in Virginia on the naval base. He was away on his last tour on the Forstall in the Mediterranean Sea. And then after he came home, he retired. And his ultimate goal was to go take over my grandfather, his father's auto mechanic shop in Texas, Corpus
Yeah.
Christi. So I'm a little tiny baby, and they traveled there. And my father began to work with his dad, and then he was approached by the military to bring his aerospace skills to the F-14 project. I believe they were bringing like the Grumman crew back together, a group of men. And that took us to San Diego. So by the time I was probably even 5 months, 6 months old, we were already in San Diego, and my dad was working at Miramar.
Yeah, and in San Diego then, like at the start of your journey in the book, like your dad is away a bit, but your mom meets this woman called Esther. Like, was your mom religious before she meets Esther?
Well, she knew Esther because Esther was married to my dad's best friend. Like, Esther was present at my birth.
Okay.
But they weren't tight because my mom was, kind of spirited and she made her own friends. I don't know what was the defining moment in San Diego that my mom stopped partying and stopped hanging out with Ginger Vizina and all the things that she did and began to just, well, first of all, they pull you slow. So
Yes.
my father was home until they started testing. That's when he said he was away a lot. When they started the testing phase of the F-14 Tomcat, he'd be gone for 6 weeks, traveling to New York, all these places. That's when she really moved in. So before that, my mom had this protectiveness of my father's presence.
Yeah.
Life was good. We went to barbecues. I have a little scattered memories that I wove in.
Yeah.
And it began with, I know you've been home alone a lot with the kids. Bring them over. There'll be other kids there. Bible study. So innocent. It's potluck. All the women get to boast their best recipes. And so that started. And then from there, it's like, hey, we're going to have a revival out at this farm. Do you want to come? Sure. Slowly, until it's, holy shit, the world is ending. Sorry for cursing.
No,
The
it's
world
all
is
good.
ending. Okay. The world is ending. You must tell your husband. And then they began to use like the things that he was doing, like, see, he's building a warplane. What better evidence that the world is ending than that, and rumors of war and verses from the
Yeah.
Bible. And that was the final break there. My father said that the last time he had gone home, my mom had consolidated our bedrooms and had bunk beds everywhere with strangers all in the house. Like, so she was beginning to take in cold members too.
Wow. And like, what was your dad thinking? Was he thinking your mom had like a mental break, or did he know she was in the clutches of a cult?
I think because of the time, so now we're at like 1973. Here's this man who is working special projects,
Yeah.
probably terrified he's going to lose his job. His wife is losing her mind. I think probably he was more focused in his job and assumed that he would just get us in the courts. And then that's what ensued for the next 5 years. He
Yeah.
fought and fought and fought and fought. So,
Yeah. I think one part I want to kind of dwell on here, just when we're at this early stage. So I think it was actually on the last page, and the listeners are not giving away anything on the story, but you refer to your mother as a sociopath. Now, when I had Rick Ross on, who is like the kind of cult expert, he kind of like stopped me really quick of like prying in when I was like, how people fall and like how do they get trapped? And he's like, never like victim blame. He goes like, that is the people that are responsible are the people that are the cult leaders, or like as you have it in, it's like Brother Wassel and like these kind of higher ups within it. So I never want to like cult blame, but like, was your mom like a sociopath? Do you think that statement rings true, and then she got caught up in this? Do you think she was a victim herself? Do you think, what's your thoughts?
where I am now versus when I wrote the book,
Yeah.
having learned more, having done therapy myself to learn more, I would say no. She was definitely a victim, for sure. So that me labeling her that probably was anger, or whatever it may have been. But she had traits. And that's the problem too, is that, once these adults, and they didn't leave her, like she never went on a healing journey, right? So they continued after the cult with her patterns of behavior. They turned her into that. So I think that's important to talk about adults who aren't that when they go into the cults and they get turned into that, and then they leave the cult and those traits never leave them. So it ruins that child's life forever.
Yeah.
Because now they have a different parent on their hands.
Yeah. And like where you were like desperately probably wanting your mama, like you have this authoritarian, like, that's open to punishment and all the trauma you go through. And I can imagine the detachment, because a caregiver, no one expects a caregiver like to be like that. And when you're a child, you probably can't understand. It's so confusing.
No.
I know at the start of the book you preface with a lot of like, the psychological, the DSM kind of quotes around like how people, really deal with trauma. And I think one of the really apparent things as we move through your story is this almost disassociation. So just to ask a question up top, like, with Sela's story, was there an element where you were maybe disassociating from, this is Vennie's story to...
My God, yes.
Yeah, was that? I was thinking that, but I wasn't sure.
I wrote that book. Well, I wrote the book the first time in third person voice. Okay. And it was like 400 pages. And then I handed it to my editor, who said, this is not your voice. This is the driest, most boring book I've ever read. Because this is not your voice. What are you avoiding? And then I went, shit. And I cried for like a week and just felt so defeated. But I had to face the truth. It wasn't my voice. It's not really how I wanted to write it. I am a first person writer. That's my voice. And once I got done grieving that valuable feedback, I just dug in and began to write. But one thing I did not want to do, I didn't want to fill in the blank spaces with untruth.
Yeah.
So one of the things that people say to me is like, gosh, your book was good. There's so much missing. Well, now you know what it's like in my head.
Yeah.
And the acceptance that a survivor has to go through when they have these missing blocks.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what's in there. I don't need to go digging in those dark caves. Probably just more and more and more abuse. I wanted to say something to go to when we first got there. And I think this is crucially important.
Yeah.
The very first day My mom was put into immediate sleep deprivation. I don't know if you've ever stayed up for 24 hours ever in your life. Just, I don't know, I'm a creative, right? So
Yeah.
I can be like, oh my God, it's 5 in the morning. I've been, you begin to feel foggy and you begin to feel, now add on prayer to that. So now you're up all night, but we're going to have you chanting and praying. So you're adding that psychological monotony into it. They did that to my mom immediately. And the reason why is my mother was overweight. And they believed if you were fat, if you were disabled, this would be people who had seizure disorders, or if you were born with Down syndrome. That was all demons.
Yeah.
You just needed to be delivered from that. So my mom arrived with an already broken brain. And then it was just fractured into 1,000 pieces within the first probably 24 hours.
Yeah. And I suppose we should let the listeners know the cult we're actually talking about is Sam Fife's. No, I've seen it wrote two ways. I think the move and then the move to God is probably the less stated version.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting thing about cults. You kind of find this. Well, they'll dissect themselves into all these names. The walk, the body, the move. Right? So, no, we're the move. We're not the body. But you guys started as the body and the walk and the move, and then they kind of splintered out. But they all began in this little cosm of, I don't know.
Yeah.
And you snakes.
Yeah. You mentioned there earlier on, like, you kind of gave a glimpse, like, it's the kind of doomsday or the end of the world. Like, what is Sam Fife, or was? I don't know. Is it still active? Mm-hmm. It is? Oh, my God.
Yes. So the cult compound that I grew up in Alaska is still there today.
With active members?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. God,
I mean, I would say the cult basically owns the town of Delta Junction, Alaska.
Yeah.
Because there's the Whitestone compound, and Bill Greer, started that, and they're all connected. Yeah, they're
and in splinter off. See,
in the governmental system of Alaska, senators, things like that. Yeah.
And like from what you can remember, what is the core tenets? What's the core belief, and has it changed? Do you know?
Sam Fife believed in this fivefold ministry. And God had, you had your apostles and your teachers, and that created this hand, and then the body. Like, that's where he got this whole philosophy. So extremely evangelical Calvinism type, very old school King James Bible. I read the Bible like 4 times before I was 14. They made us memorize passages like the begets. This person beget, this person beget. I mean, they're so long, and then you'd have to recite them and be punished if you messed up, and then you'd have to start over. A lot of Old Testament teachings, smeared with an icing of the New Testament, love, right. So the original King James Bible was their basic tenets, and it's still that today. Yeah.
The amount of times I'd say demon is mentioned in the book, because it's such almost the whole linguistic architecture is built by the sounds of it going from the book. It's all this you do something bad, there's a demon in you. Someone has epilepsy, there's a demon in them. Someone sneezes, there's a demon in it. It's it's just so oppressive hearing that language, even just all to be around it. But Vennie, I want to go back. Right, so your mom and dad get a divorce. You moved then to one of these farms on the kind of journey to wilderness, but into Massachusetts, I think, is first. So what age are you then? What's going on?
I'm 3 years old, and my brother is, I'm 3. My sister is 7. My brother's 9. And we all get split up and put into these classes. The compound at Ware, Massachusetts is very interesting. Right. I'm almost 100% sure that it was a military base. So as I understand, through the Army Corps of Engineers, during the late 60s, early 70s, America had secret bases throughout the Cold War, okay? Yeah. And those were put up on private auction. And I believe, I haven't gone to the Army Corps of Engineers to trace
Yeah.
the deed for the land, but it does drop. And that would probably be my next place to go. So that's always interesting to me, that connection. So that land was brokered by a man named Fred Jazak, who was a real estate agent in Las Vegas. And it got sold to Sam Fife for $10, 200 and something acres of land, sold to Living Word Ministry for $10 by these three men. One of them named Donald McLean. He's an important player because his son is in my book. He's the one who had the child die, anyways, there's a whole podcast you should write down called Sarum. That goes, yes, and it is amazing. Like, you'll probably listen because it's just so well made. It's very engaging. That goes into Donald McLean's son, Doug. This is a very layered, like this goat's blood serum, right?
Yeah.
They're all grifters.
Yeah.
So the barracks, where you would have the soldiers in barracks and the rooms are upstairs, there was a cafeteria style. I mean, it had to have been barracks. There was the military bunk beds, blankets, everything was military issued that we used. And it was just completely regimented. It was a slave camp. We never had free time, couldn't speak to each other. I couldn't speak to my mother. Nobody could speak to me.
That was one of the more shocking aspects of the book. That, and again, this is, I can imagine, like typical from everything I've read about cults. It's, or any kind of predatory group, it's splitting you off from anyone you know. From, and that's what they did. You were all put in different bunks. Like, you barely got to see your mom, only in passing, which is so wild for, I think, to kind of contemplate that separation. And obviously it's just trying to destroy any sort of, bonds that you had pre-cult.
Yeah, because there's a sermon that's on my website, VennieKocsis.com/the cult. Feel free to read every document there. These are Sam Fife's original sermons, but one of the most disturbing ones is a sermon he has called The Divine Order of Raising Children, where he instructs that you must begin to beat a baby at 3 days old because babies are selfish, he said, and they will wake up their mother all through the night, and they need to be trained not to. It is so disturbing to even think of that. So now you understand what children were also witnessing. So we're in multi-layered trauma. There are flashbacks I have. Like, I cannot stand to hear a baby left crying.
Yeah.
That is triggering for me because these are the sounds that follow you through life, that echo in your head. And they would cover, this is very like trigger warning to anybody who's about to listen to what I'm going to say, but it needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
They would cover the baby's faces when they cried, take their breath from them to shut them up. So when you're a child, you're at that eye length. Think about how you're holding a baby. You've got an adult, like you're right there looking at that baby in the eyes. Those visuals never leave you. They also did very weird, everything we killed was kosher. So we also followed a lot of Jewish rituals. We were taught in part that as Christians, we were supposed to protect the Jews. The final battle would be like in this great valley, and Jesus would descend, and then the Jews would be like, oh my God, you were right. Jesus is the king of the world, I mean, I laugh and scoff. It wasn't funny then. It's ridiculous now, but so they're telling you you're really important and you're nothing at the same time. You're this great warrior for God. You're a beast.
Yeah.
And then you're working all day. So if you read a book called We Walk on Water, it's written by a woman named Cara Cobb, and she was the wife of Sam. Okay, so Sam Fife had a personal pilot. His name was Buddy Cobb. Yeah. Buddy Cobb had a son. She was married to his son. And one thing that she's very open about is one of her tasks in the cult was to make sure the children were busy. Because idle work is the devil's hands.
Yeah.
So no matter what, I mean, she would be constantly trying to find stuff for the kids to do. So we were picking grubs off of the bottom of leaves. Now, I didn't grow up with Kara. I'm just an example of how one of the leaders is, wife is saying, yes, like we did do this. It's a confirmation of what we children have spoken about.
Yeah.
So we were I would say maybe we got 5-6 hours of sleep a night, because everything's so regimented. You're up in the morning, out in the fields. I remember at Massachusetts, they would have little cans of oil. And our job as children was to be on our hands and knees and go down the rows and pick the little bugs off the leaf and put them so you'd spend an hour and a half doing that. Now think about this. This is 3, 4, 5-year-old children, 6, 7. This is what they're doing an hour and a half before breakfast. So then you go back to the tabernacle. It's named that after the tabernacle in the Bible. And you have prayer for an hour. Then you get to eat. And then you're back to work. I don't even remember going to school. I must have, because I was such a good reader by the time I got to Alaska, but I don't have memory of that because the trauma was too great. So
yeah, and when you got there, all your ties were burned. And I think another shock. Well, there's a lot of shocking stuff in the book, but one of them was then you had to go around with a sign around your neck, learning to be quiet because you talked a lot. It's the obliteration of a mind, isn't it? It's like just complete control. But question on this. So, did Sam Fife, in your opinion, did Sam Fife believe all this, or was it a grift? In your opinion?
Yeah, I don't know. There's such a wide array of opinion from survivors. From he was in the CIA, and this cult is a cover for MK Ultra programs, which isn't far from an ideal given the type of torture that they use. Very interesting, right? Very regimented torture. So there's some that believe that, and it's one of the very few cults that's allowed to exist. The FBI refuses to investigate this cult.
Wow.
And it has some of the most horrific survivor stories from it. So that is very peculiar. There's a lot of ties. When you look at Doug McClain, you look at these guys, you have to ask yourself, can you even call that a grift? That's so far beyond a grift. It's a criminal syndicate. That's how I would classify them. A criminal syndicate. Let me tell you why. And I'm kind of leaping around here, but this is an example of how they're to this day still harming people. Just a few years ago, so the compound in Alaska owns one of the biggest construction companies, Dry Creek Construction. And this doctor, a retired neurosurgeon, hired them to build his property. None of it passed code because they cheated them, okay? So they sued them. The day they go to court to start the trial, the judge isn't there. The clerk's like, oh, he missed a plane in, or whatever the excuse was. And that day, by the end of the day, Dry Creek Construction filed bankruptcy to try to get out of the lawsuit. Then that gets kicked to the... So you see, they're still grifting to this day. Doug McClain, still grifting to this day, but I think grift is a mild word because they're committing crimes against people, like defrauding and
abusing.
Yes.
It's the abusing that is just so vile. And I think to any sane human being, child abuse, abusing children sexually, physically, mentally, is just so aberrant. And it seems like it was rife.
And transferring the pedophiles to another compound instead of punishing them. I'll tell you a story. I don't know if you remember the little part in my book where I had written this guy a letter because I had a crush on him. Okay? I was 12. And this is how they operated. So I write this letter at 12 years old. I'm saying things in this letter a 12-year-old shouldn't know, like, you know, how I could please him, and why I'd make a good wife, and all of these things, right? So I slip it to him one day at a meal. And then, I don't know, maybe a couple days later, we're at church service. He gets up behind the pulpit. My heart is just pounding. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. Because they always blamed the victim, right? You're a whore
Yeah.
of Babylon, you're a Jezebel. If you're the victim, you seduced the man. So I'm like, I'm fucked, you know? Like, it's over now. And then he gives his testimony. I came here for healing. I got a letter from one of the young girls, and I know that God has healed me because instead of acting on the letter, I took it to the elders. Hallelujah, praise the Lord, you've been healed. That was it. Nobody ever was like, why do you know this stuff? And
Why do you have to be?
at such a young age, and not a word. And then for a few days after, you're waiting because they were always very methodic with punishment. And they love to put you in waiting mode to where you're like this, like, when's the shoe falling? And then time just went on and nobody ever said anything. But it's there. It's like collateral that nags at you, like, remember the letter, remember the letter. But that's a good example of how instead of protecting a child, they used it to solidify the cult mind control.
Yeah.
I never told my mother or anybody.
Yeah. Like, it's so interesting there that you say, they kind of kept under threat. Like, I think a lot of the psychological literature into, like, a lot of, like, kind of psychosis and stuff, like, a lot of the reports is, it's not like the violence, or sometimes it's the abuse, it's the fear of it that creates, like, a mega trauma almost. I think some places like call it, like, the X factor. But it's this kind of part that they find it really hard to quantify. But what they think it happens is when you're under threat for so long that, there's some sort of trauma that builds, like this superseded trauma. And it sounds like that happened to he, like, a lot. Like, it was
shame.
threat. Yeah. Like, I think with Brother Weasel and stuff like that, like the terror and stuff of, like, and I don't want to, I know stuff like this is very probably hard to talk about, so I don't want to.
I've talked about it so much
Yeah.
that at this point, the way my emotional state sits is that we've got to get the education out there. Walsall was a vile man, a drunk. I cannot stand to hear drunks slurring. Like, there's all these triggers they create in us. I don't like the smell of alcohol. I don't even drink alcohol, right? That I think as adults, people don't think about. Like, I'll give you an example in a relationship where one person, maybe it's the husband, who's like, honey, I don't like when you drink. I don't like the way your breath smells. I get nauseous. But maybe I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's that trigger of that memory, but a lot of trauma survivors haven't pieced it together yet. I can now say, hold on a minute, I'm triggered. Let me get a sip of water. Let me turn on my fan. It takes you time to get there. But I'm there now, and we have to talk about it, because if I had just one wish right now, it would be to stop hitting children.
Yeah.
Right? But sexual abuse shatters a child in way you never are the same again. So I get a little bit pissy when I hear people grifting off of the Epstein story, and they're grifting off of this and that, and I'm like, when's the last time you walked into the child court system and just sat in there? When's the last time you applied to be a CASA volunteer or did any type of work? Because the real problem is in the arena people aren't talking about. And I feel like in America, religions were given exemptions because that's where all the crimes against children hide.
Yeah.
And so now they get to go to court and go, well, freedom of religion.
Yeah.
And we have got to do something about that, or it's never going to end.
Yeah, and I think we see it. I think we see it like, because the power dynamic between an adult and a child is so
Mm-hmm.
like it's such a massive power dynamic or difference. But like it seems to happen in these like institutions where there tends to be more power, like cults, where
Mm-hmm.
you see it so much in the church as well. Like we've had a lot in Ireland around like the Catholic Church
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
and stuff pushed under the carpet and like oh, thank
Mm-hmm.
God like disclosure. A lot of stuff comes out now, but like how rampant was like that kind of sordid, pedophilia and stuff within it. Like, do you think there was people that got into the cult just so that they have access,
Absolutely,
or did it come up
yes.
organically in it?
Oh no, the cult welcomed pedophiles for healing because they considered that to be a demon spirit. You could come to the church and say, I have a propensity for children. I know it's a sin, knowing that they will send you to a farm where there's no electricity, no running water, no place to call for help, and it's full of children. In fact, one of the men in Alaska who molested me, Ray Slape, I'll say his name, he's dead, I don't care.
Yeah.
He had money. So he had a nice little room upstairs in the tabernacle. Like, I just remember he had everything we weren't allowed to have. Cookies in a tin, which were used to groom me.
Jeez.
Why was he allowed to have that when we weren't even allowed to have any snacks? So yeah, I have lots of questions of why some people who ended up being pedophiles were given special privileges. Why was Wassel allowed to drink alcohol
Yeah.
when they were against drinking alcohol? You see, so if you were a leader, an elder, which is where the pedophiles were, you got all these special privileges. So I absolutely have a question is like, are you guys a pedophile trafficking network that's being protected by the government? Because nobody will listen to dozens. I'm not the only one. There's dozens of survivors that are speaking out. I'm probably just the loudest, right?
Yeah. And like, yeah, like it's just so frightening to kind of, because there was no one to turn to. I think that's the most, and that's probably like so many these children that get caught up in this. They're just so
Mm-hmm.
powerless. Like you no one to turn to, and like even if you did, they would have shamed you. They would have called. They would have said there's a demon in you, or they would have
Mm-hmm.
blamed you, which is. I just think it's so egregious, and it's kind of
Yeah.
terrifying to think of. Like it really
Mm-hmm.
is. It's terrifying to imagine like that this went on and probably still is going on. You know?
I don't know if the level of torture that we endured in the beginning is still going on. Like when I talk about the methodical torture, like holding us in ice baths. Like
Yeah.
shit they do at Guantanamo was done to us as 3, 4, 5-year-old children, which pushed me into near-death experiences or, things that you've read in my book where I
Yeah.
floated off and I'm with this woman, which left me in an absolute obsession with the paranormal for the rest of my life, right? And NDEs and consciousness. But it is definitely questionable why all this is allowed. And if you see in 1979, Sherry Smith went to the New York Times and said, I'm an adult. They tied her to a bed and beat her with a board as an adult. And they're doing this to children. And at the end of the article, the New York Times says, and we contacted Sam Fife and Buddy Cobb for comment with no response. And that was it.
Wow. That is. God, it's just such a. There's no duty of care like a good journalist
No.
would always. But again, like we don't know. It goes back to your point earlier on. Like, was there, government strings being pulled protecting this cult? Like, to allow it to
Yeah.
grow, to displace blame, to get away with everything.
Yes. And if you look at what Doug McLean did, so his father was Donald, and he bought the land in Ware, and then and then they had all of these people go to Alaska, and at that time, probably like 1975, 6, 7, they're homesteading land for free. Okay. Then Doug and George Harris go up there and they begin to quick deed the land back and forth to each other for like $1 per plat. I have all of this on that link,
On
and
your
I have
database.
even a plat map to show the original
Yeah.
names of who homesteaded the land. Okay. Then George Harris and Doug help Whitestone buy their land in Alaska. And then Doug, he always traveled around anyways. But if you look up the United States U.S. Exchange Commission versus Doug McLean, Stephen Ferrone, Vince Vaughn's stepfather, and Doug's son, who I grew up with, the story goes into serum, right? But it weaves in. So there was a black doctor who had used goat's blood to create a cure for AIDS, and it was working. And you'll hear this in this podcast serum. And so this is like the 80s, 90s, right? He goes to Fauci. You'll hear Fauci in this podcast to say, hey, let's do a study. Okay, so he gets approved for this study. I'm trying to think of how all this goes down. Or he doesn't get approved at first, so he went to Africa.
Right.
And he starts treating AIDS children, I think, there. And it's curing them. So he brings this data back to the U.S. again and says, hey, here's some data. Can I get the study now? Long story short, I won't completely ruin it for you. He died. Very odd, mysterious death from a very healthy young doctor in his 50s. You know who ended up with the goat's blood? Doug McLean and Steve Ferrone, who all started this Immunocorp, and they're selling shares for this goat's blood to millions of dollars. Steve Ferrone gets found, okay, they all get arrested. You can barely find really that much about Doug because he gets himself kind of dropped out of the case. His son ends up going to prison. It's just these people are sick. Imagine sending your own kid, putting your kid in the accounting position so he goes to jail instead of you. They're just disgusting individuals.
Whoa.
But there was another guy on the case named James Maselli. James Maselli gets found dead in Atlanta in Doug McLean's car. It's he committed suicide. These are the level of people that we're dealing with here. Doug gets out of the case. James Maselli dies. Ferrone and his son, Doug McLean Jr., go to prison for a while. Now Doug McLean Jr.'s out, and they're all started another company. Wow. And Doug is still hawking this goat's blood. He just hawked it a couple years ago to this dear sweet woman on the East Coast who has a child who has a bone disorder where the bones go soft.
Yeah.
So they break easily. He took 25, 30 grand from her. She goes to the FBI, okay? They say, give him the money. They wire her. He's still walking free.
And what is
the most bizarre shit.
Is it just goat's blood, or is there a patent on it? Is it mixed with something? Or?
Listen, I think we all should be really looking at what's been demonized to us. If you go on social media, this whole satanic, goats are terrible, 666 is bad. Well, what is our blood made of? 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. That's where 666 comes from. So Christians believe, some Christians, there's so many dissected versions of Christianity, but when you get into the origins, and this was taught in our cult too, that only 144,000 people would be left on earth, right? At the end. But also that we have to change our blood to a 616, how are you going to change your freaking DNA? But this is where this 666 Satanist terrible goat's blood comes from. And I think the truth is, they're keeping us from certain substances that probably could heal us, help our immune system get better. They just demonize it. Meanwhile, they're doing their own infusions on themselves to keep themselves healthy and young. So that's where that's coming from. So I'd love to know more too, but the United States Health Institute won't. But yet at the same time, they won't arrest this guy. So she wore a wire. They have the whole recording of her getting the serum. She took the serum back to the FBI, hands them the serum, hands them the recording. That was it.
That was it. And we know from MK Ultra, we know from Tom O'Neill's book Chaos, like, you know, the Manson family, it wouldn't be the first time, you know, some levels of government anyway were embedded with cults or were given like easier
Jolly
deals.
West.
Jolly West has a dark
That
history.
book really inspired an article that I did about that. Yeah, no, I think instead of him having to go to his parole officer, Manson, when he was violated, they were like, just go to this clinic instead and tell Dr. Jolly West about your emotions.
Yeah. I wonder, is there any connection, like, or will it ever come out if there's like a Jolly West connection with Sam Fife or with some of the, you know,
Like
the higher
where,
up?
yeah. No, there's so many questions and so many blanks, you know, through all of this because, like, I can't even get my birth records from the military base. Just a lot of us have a lot of questions, and a lot of us came from military families. So
Yeah.
our questions are like, were you guys tracking us? Like,
What's
I
going
don't
on?
obsess over these questions because I think it's stupid to obsess over questions you're not going to probably get answered. You're just going to drive yourself crazy, right? But there are definitely enough oddities and patterning to put together some questions that can't be classified as delusions.
Yeah. And like, Vennie, we know, you know, follow the money trail is always the best way. Where was all this money coming out for like compounds in Alaska? Like, by
know.
the sounds of it in the book, you were all, like, it was self-sufficiency, it was homesteading. Like, you know, no one's out there bringing in a wage from what I could read in the book anyway. Where was all the money coming in to, you know, for everything, for Sam Fife to be able to fly around in a private plane?
I know. Those are great questions. They would tell you, oh, well, you know, we had so many wealthy people that joined the cult. Bullshit. But in Alaska, the whole reason they moved all the lower 48 compounds up to Alaska is because in 1979 or 78, Alaska began to pay out a pipeline dividend. They're a very oil-rich state. So if you live in Alaska and you've lived there for a year, you've established residency, you get about $1,000 a month. So if you have multiple compounds, so at the time I moved up there, Dry Creek, Haynes, Hoona, Edgerton, Palmer, 5 compounds alone, you put, let's say, 200 people on there. There were more, but I'm being, you know, gracious with that number.
Yeah.
Now you do the math. What's 200 times 5 times 1,000? How much are they bringing in a year? In 1979, where everything is like so much cheaper, millions of dollars just on the Alaska pipeline dividends alone. Now, Alaska, the state of Alaska, contracted with the cult. My brother was one who worked. He went straight to work. We moved up there, he was like 13, 14 in Alaska.
Yeah.
He's working to build the pipeline, not go to school. He was in child labor building the Alaska pipeline, for the Alaska pipeline. They'd take them into these houses in Delta where they'd stay for the week.
Yeah.
While they worked all day. And then they'd come home for the weekend to like have church or whatnot. So they're using child labor
Indentured
in Alaska.
servitude.
So the government knew. I have no mercy for the state of Alaska at all. They knew exactly what was going on. My father, even as a final desperate attempt, sent a social worker, triggered a social call from California to Alaska. She had to call and make an appointment.
Yeah.
And we were my sister and I pulled into a meeting. Girls, you know, this is how they come at you. They don't say, you better say this or else. The devil is testing your mother. And this is your opportunity to show your faith in God, to protect her against this attack from Satan. So now you're standing alone with this social worker, but really what binds your silence is, well, first of all, we didn't have the language to say what they were doing. Does that make sense?
That's the whole thing. I was thinking the exact same thing when I was reading through the interview snippets you kind of have, or the dialogue with that social or welfare officer. I was thinking the exact same thing. It's like you don't even have the language to say what the abuse is, because how does a girl that age know really what it is? Like
No.
what's been done to her, kind of
Right.
like,
You just know you're very miserable, you're unhappy, please take me away from here. But you can't
yeah.
quite say why. But the thing that bound me was, what if I say I'm not happy here
Oh,
and
that's
they don't believe me, and then they leave me, and then it gets found out that I'm a sinner. I didn't protect my
punishment.
mom. I gave in to the devil.
Yeah, you
And
are the
now,
devil.
right. And so your mind is just in a pinball machine. And another thing too, I was born deaf in my right ear.
Yeah,
So the loudness I had as a child was that I couldn't hear. And they didn't allow you to look at them, and I really needed to read lips to
yeah.
hear. So I was constantly being punished for ignoring. I had a demon of obstinance. I just didn't want to listen. Look, this happened to me. This is kind of a funny story. If you'll let me tell a little funny story to break the tension.
Lighten it
Yeah.
up a bit.
So I have 8 grandchildren, and they're so great and amazing. But my eldest granddaughter just graduated high school. She's on her way to college, okay? So she's talking to me, and she says a sentence, and I think she's talking about like a Russian class, that she's going to take a Russian class, but that she decided, I don't think I want to because it's a lot. It's going to be a lot of pressure, and I don't know if I want to go right into college with that. And I go, well, man, knowing Russian would be amazing, just knowing any language. And she
Yeah.
goes, what are you talking about? I said, didn't you just say you weren't going to take Russian? She said, no, I'm not going to join the sorority. That is how bad somebody
Wow.
who struggles to hear can just but luckily my family's used to me, so we all laugh about it.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my God, you totally misheard me.
Yeah.
But as a child, when you can't hear, and you say, so then I would say the wrong thing, thinking I was saying the right thing because I had misheard what was said. That probably got me more beatings than anything.
Yeah.
Was that I was just obstinate and I didn't want to answer right. And nobody was like, dude, she's deaf.
Yeah. Like, I think, thankfully, like, one of the benefits of modernity, like, because I think, like, punishment was, or, like, maybe slapping a child was more normal back in the 70s. But what you went through was, like, it was not like slap, it was torture. Like, it was,
Oh, yeah.
there was levels of
Methodical
torture.
torture, yes.
Like,
100%.
Did they, like, what was the, because the thing is, like, are they trying to, like, literally beat, like, or torture out the fight in you, or is it just to try get you to be more obedient? Is it a power thing? Is it all them things? What
Well,
do you
it's
think?
based on that sermon. So if you think about it as part of the philosophy, kids were beat for nothing. Like especially at Ware, I mean, this is just diabolical. That's why I kind of laugh at people and their whole notion of demons. Like, you want to be scared of some invisible entity that's never been proven? Let me tell you what a demon really is. A demon
Sister
is
Maria.
an adult who will either stand by quiet while a child is being tortured or anybody's being tortured, or they are doing the torturing. That's a demon to me. That's how I classify a demon. An angel would be the person who saves that person,
Yeah.
right? And to tell us that we are demonic. So you got to think too that you're not just getting punished in the beginning. In Alaska, after Sam Fife died, things shifted a little bit. But when you're being beaten and you've done nothing, you're just being beaten because you are a child, therefore you are a beast, per this sermon called The Divine Order of Raising Children. And in that sermon, he even laughs about locking his wife in the bathroom and beating her. He says, and I laughed as she
Sadism.
hollered. These are
It's sadism.
really sick men. I mean, we could, and Sam Fife is the hardest guy to trace his roots. Who is he? Where the F did he come from?
Yeah.
Who
'Cause
were
his
his
Wikipedia
parents?
page was very scant. Like, I was like,
Nobody can find shit on this dude.
no.
So, my brain goes like,
Your
are you like
conspiracy into
a
it. What's
child
going
of,
on?
of Project Paperclip, you little, like, since you're acting like a Nazi, like, these are the torture methods that the Nazis used on the Jews. You're using them on
One
children.
million
It's
percent.
disturbing.
Like, and all the studies that came out,
Yep.
all the stuff, like after World War II, people were like, psychologists were so perplexed into how, like, seemingly normal people, like, could go and rally people up and put them into death camps and stuff like that. Because we know from general population, 1 in 100 roughly is a psychopath. So
It's so
all the
scary.
all the guards could not
Yeah.
be psychopaths. So what we seen with, like, a lot of these studies that came out was, when people are under the thumb of an authority, they will. Well, there's two. That's one. When people are under the thumb of authority, they will do, like, horrific things if it's
Yeah.
like someone telling them. The other thing is, like, de-individualization, which is like you put on a soldier's uniform. You could kill someone, or a cop, or any uniform. You kind of take away your individual identity, and you switch it with some other, a uniform. It could be a mask, a badge, or whatever. That's kind of two ways to do it, but it still doesn't kind of explain, like, I don't think it explains everything. I think there's another factor there we just probably don't understand, and maybe it's, maybe people
Well,
disassociate a bit as well in a bad way.
also, to look at the Holocaust, I think what makes the Holocaust especially egregious, it wasn't the first Holocaust that happened in the world. I mean, the Bible has a Holocaust if you look at the Great Flood. God himself it committed genocide of a whole planet, if you believe that story, right? It's just that was the first one that was really televised, that had
Yeah.
images to prove it. But before that, it was the Christian Crusades, where the
Genghis
Christians
Khan.
were being slaughtered. And then the Christians were slaughtering. So you got the burning times. There just weren't cameras back then.
Yeah.
So the Holocaust is not the first time genocide was committed off of a belief system.
Yeah.
I mean, I also talk about soul genocide. I have a poem called Soul Genocide. That's the worst genocide, because then those people are living dead, because you've stripped them of any worth that they have. And that's another thing too. I've been working on an article about social media cults, because I see they are really on the rise. There's a couple of factors that I notice. One is if you are desperate to fit in somewhere. If you need validation from outside of yourself, you are ripe for a cult. Because that's how they get you. They're like, and they can tell. They can sniff your insecurity, right? So that's a big problem. People need to raise their self-worth and quit looking for worth in these groups. So that makes you rife to get pulled in. And then once you get in, there's a couple things that happen next. One, if I leave, I lose my community.
Yeah.
I get shamed. And worse, they attack me. Or everything I've shared privately gets used against me. I get slammed in the public eye. That's why, fuck it. Say what you're going to say. And don't be ashamed of your words, right? I'm not. Whatever I've said in private, yep, I said that. And that's how I felt. But that's what they do. They gather that collateral. Nixium is such a good example of this. Scientology, Scientology tactics are being dispatched so hard online. That's exactly what people do. They get to know you. They pretend to be your friend. They ask you about your pain. You share your pain, and they're like, I got you. No, you don't. You look like a moron, because you're using someone's pain to try to belittle and manipulate them. But but that's what cults do.
Yeah. It's
so
a predatory
yes.
organization. Like, you look at that two recent ones there that got busted, Twin Flames, or Twin Flame Universe, like, which was, again, it's kind of taking
Can we
people.
just pause at the moment that guy was like, I just love Jesus. Okay, that fake crying, like, that is such a perfect psychopath moment.
Psycho.
I just love Jesus so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
nefarious. Like, but again, I think like in the Bible it says like there are people that use like the false prophets, them people that like Kevin or Kenneth Copeland, I think is like the biggest, that mega pastor guy. Like I think in the Bible anyway, I think it states like that the worst place in hell is for them people who use God to kind of grift,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Zizians was another, if you can remember that. But it's like preying on, like
Yes.
it's the new age culture playing on people's like kind of sexual. We're going to set you up with the best partner, or you know, your twin flame is out there. We're going to help you find it, but you have to do this. Tell us everything about you. And these are
And
ones that,
then and then the people when they were like, I don't feel like a boy. I
yeah,
don't feel like a girl. They were like, oh, well, you just haven't come into your full
yeah,
twin flame yet.
yeah,
So making them push against their own identity to break it down and continue to
yeah.
break it down, right? It's,
Oh my
yeah.
God, that's so true. I never thought of it like that, but that is actually, that's a really interesting insight, because that is what it is. It's like, because what you experienced like was the separate the family, doctrine. But what they're doing in the modern way, it's breaking down the
Yes.
identity. And the way there was, it was like changing the gender, or it was like you were born as this sex or whatever.
And you wanted that. I
Yeah,
just helped you get there. So I
yeah,
don't know what you're upset about. Like the way that twin flames acted like that, like, well, that's what they wanted.
yeah.
That is such a victim blaming stance. It's the way that someone gets raped and then suddenly like the rapist disappears. Like Vennie got raped by Bob. Next news story, Vennie got raped. Well, what happened to Bob? That's not how news stories should be written. It should be Bob raped Vennie. Bob is going to court. Bob is
Yeah.
going to jail. Yes, and if you're a female, it's it's even worse. I think with the guys, they kind of play on their ego,
Yeah.
right? But I'll tell you, being on social media and even in a cult, there's this misconception that men aren't dramatic. They are so. They just operate differently. I'm not saying
Yeah.
all men, okay?
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
want to be
No.
blanketed here, but in the
Yeah.
cult environment and the cultic mentality, they're extremely dramatic and they love drama. They just roll it out differently. I had found in the cult, men were very blatant,
Yeah.
where women were more deceptive and scandalous and kind of enjoyed the sadistic part of it emotionally, where men smack you, move on.
Yeah.
Another thing they did too would be like to take you to a male elder to get spanked. Like that type of stuff is very disturbing. And you're like 9 and we always had to wear skirts, and they'd like bend you. It was very ritualistic.
Yeah.
Bend you over the knee, lift the skirt. It's all shame and perversion and pain, and it just all wrapped in this ball of disturbing, while the guy gets to kind of like get off on that. It's disgusting.
Yeah, I think I remember one part from the book, just when we're talking about the kind of humiliation and shame part, was for you to go make that apology at breakfast. And like, yeah, I think the way you describe it in the book, wasn't that many people there, but but you thought, okay, not going to be as big of a deal, but your kind of mom made you stand up. She announced it first, and again, it just hit me with that kind of the shame, humiliation. Have you ever seen I don't know if you ever watched Game of Thrones, but when
Oh
she,
my God, yes, I
yeah,
love Game of
as
Thrones.
they walk
Yes.
down, everyone's shouting shame.
Shame,
That is one
yeah.
of the worst human feelings, is shame. Like, I think people can deal with pain, like, to a certain extent, but like shame, there's something really deeply psychologically painful about shame or humiliation.
Yes, and the way that shame works on you is if you put your value and your worth in what other people think of you. It's hard to get away from that.
Yeah.
I've come a long way from where I used to be, where like, okay, that person's going to think that thing, or I'm going to be harmed in life and people aren't going to care. This is reality. I mean, this is the reality we're in, where people are filming someone being harmed instead of helping them,
Yeah.
right? Or they will align with abusers because their agendas are the same.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of us don't roll like that. Like, I don't care how much money you have, how much power you have. If you're a bad person, I'm not doing business with you. I loved this interview. I wish I could remember his name. It was a CEO. He said before he does business or goes into business with anyone, he takes them to dinner. And in that dinner, he will ask them specific questions or do things that'll let him know if they have ethics. So here's an example. If his client is a married man, he'll take him to dinner, and then when a good-looking chick walks by, he'll make a comment and watch how that guy reacts. He said if that guy is willing to cheat on his wife, he won't do business with him. He's not an ethical person. So we live now in a society where people are just willing to completely overlook just really bad behavior to align with agendas. And that's a problem.
Yeah. I'll tell you, like, so on the Dark Finds page, the Instagram page, so like has a lot
I was browsing it, yeah.
But you get some like mad insights, like psychological insights or sociological insights. Like one of the things is like, I think why society is getting more based and just, I think people are, it's just weird, right? So I'll give you the example here. One of the videos went viral there recently. And I was like, why is this video, like, you know, why had it got so much comments, so much engagement on it? And what it is, it's CCTV footage in Brazil. And it's this husband, he just shows this man, he's looking at shovels. It's like a kind of Walmart he's in. He picks up the shovel and he catches him going down the aisle. And he clocks the manager of the store over the head with the shovel. And like, it's like, what is going on? And seemingly, the man he hit with the shovel was his wife's manager. And pretty much he'd said some comments to her, he wasn't nice to her or whatever. And why the video went so popular was because half the comments are women being like, where can I get a husband like that? And then half of the men are like, you know, oh, that's murder or that's attempted murder and all that. And it's just like, that's where, like that. So if that's what's going viral on social media, like, social media is almost like a mirror of our interests, because what the algorithm is selecting for is what people are paying attention to. And it just makes me feel like that it's just getting like, people are getting so comfortable with violence.
Like bloodthirst.
See it on the screen, yeah. And it's...
Instead of people saying, like me, I would have been like, my husband better not ever do that, because then his ass is going to go to jail and I got to go bail him out and he's going to lose his job and we're going to have financial issues.
It's funny to life.
Like, where's the critical thinking in that? I think people, and I have too, I've spoken from places of pain. You know, we rage. None of us are exempt from that feeling. And that is what that's feeding in people, is they've been hurt. Yeah. And they want justice, and rightfully so. We all want justice when we've been harmed. And that's where that bloodthirst comes from. It's like, if I can't get justice for myself, I'm going to enjoy watching someone else get it.
Yeah. And a lot of
people. And it's scary, because in that moment, there's no critical thinking happening.
No. Vennie, I'm going to sidetrack there for a minute, because I'm interested in this. So, in the book as well, I think you mentioned, it's probably getting towards the end of the chapters, but you mentioned, I think you'd read The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, but you had more of an affinity almost with the witch. And I've heard you on the podcast there, you were talking like kind of more, less secular. Like, what's your relationship with God now? Have you one? Or with religion, kind of anything in general? Or do you feel kind of you have more of a connection with that kind of witchier side, if that makes sense?
Well, when I got out of the cult, and I actually have Rise of Scylla, which is supposed to be the sequel. It's about half written. But I'll tell you, you know, you think you're going to just knock out a book, and then especially when it's a memoir, you get into it and you're like, holy shit, there's a lot of like emotion there. Yeah. So I am picking up my other device, because you asked me a question about how do I think about God now. So when I got out of the cult, I fell into Anne Rice. I think The Witching Hour was like one of the first books I read. And I was such an empathic child, very highly sensitive, even before the cult. Like, my dad, I'm so lucky to have reconnected with him around 2007, and we were really close until he got Alzheimer's, and then his mind went. And he passed last year. But being being able to confirm with him things that I remembered even before the cult, my early memories. I was a very sensitive child, was able to really just see into things. So what held me in religion for a while was fear. Like, I don't want to go to hell. I don't want to burn. I don't want the devil to get me, you know?
Yeah.
And then I started reading. And then one time I was at a party as a teenager, and there was this old hippie there. And he had been in Vietnam, and he starts talking to me. I couldn't, like, we didn't know the word cult in the 80s, right? I didn't have that language.
Yeah, okay.
No, to say I was in a cult, plus I was in shame. And so I didn't know how to explain my story. So I would just say my mom and dad got divorced. My dad was in the military, and that's how I ended up here because my grandma lives here. That was it.
Yeah.
But I knew that I had a great struggle going on with belief. I just couldn't kind of figure it out. Probably, I have a cool podcast I'll send you. I did a 2-part series a few years ago called Voices of Deconversion.
Wow, okay.
But this is how I look at God now.
Yeah.
I'll read you this poem that I wrote about it. I looked for God once. I searched in books and old script. I couldn't find her. She was lost, wandering in dark matter, void and scattered from too much thinking. I searched in other humans, philosophy, ideals, and what ifs. I ran through mazes, backward and forward in a seesaw of mass confusion. I sat in the cloak of her invisibility, and I waited to no avail. In the long, quiet solitude, I searched myself. I searched the pain and confusion. I searched the foggy fragments and pieced together the sharp shards until I held a fragmented whole. Then the light hit its surface, creating a reflection, and there she was. I found God.
Wow, so it's gone more back to, like, so what I'm getting from that, there's a lot of chaos, a lot of searching. It's not nihilism, though.
To return back to ourselves.
Okay.
You know what I
So
mean?
return back to ourselves.
Yes, I went through all of this searching. I've read the Stoics. I've read the Quran. I've read the Torah. I've read Jehovah's Witness. I've read so much. But I also read out of curiosity, like, what do other people believe, you know? And so I think there was a period, too, I was also searching. Like, what else is out there? And then this pattern emerged, like, wow, like a lot of people believe in invisible stuff, but they don't believe in themselves. Like, what's up with that? And then, you know, that led me more and more into myself, into spiritual energy, into, like, studying Babylon, the temple whores, and how
Jezebels.
well, and the funny thing about that, and it links to Christianity, is that if you study them, you were very lucky to get to have sex with a sacred whore.
Okay.
Okay? It's so important people study this, because I think this is part of the patriarchy, where they took something very sacred and turned it dirty. So I have, and this isn't nice, I know, but I'm not always nice. There's a lot of hoes pretending to be a whore.
Okay.
And that's right. And what I mean by that is a hoe will sleep with anybody, especially if you throw them money.
Yeah.
A whore will not do that. So studying the sacred whores, studying Babylon, studying truth before the Bible was so helpful for me, because I had so much shame around sex.
Yeah,
And
I can imagine.
sexuality, and what did it mean? And I just knew as I went on through life that I felt the best about myself when I was being extremely sacred with my energy, not giving it away willfully without intent, being very protective of it. And so, yes, they took all of that on the cults and flipped it. The sacred whores were terrible. They were Jezebels. They ruined men's lives. But they didn't. They were healers, and they were medicine women, and they understood the power of orgasm and sexual energy on a spiritual level, not on a sexual level. Those are two different things. That's why Himmler and Maria Corsic and Jack Parsons and all his witchy wives, and none of them could ever actualize anything through sex magic because they were just having orgies, and that's not what sex magic is.
Wow.
So everything has been flipped on us. Everything that's sacred and good has been told to us that it's evil. And so it took me a very long time to sift through that and come to that deduction at probably, I'm going to be 57 next year. So I think I really started settling around like age 38.
Wow. And how did you get to all these like insights, like that insight even into yourself? Like, was that, I suppose it's probably a healing journey, but like, did this come up like epiphany moments? Was it like bringing trauma to the surface and trying to analyze it? Was it talking like, you know, with a therapy, like even that thing about giving away your energy, being selective, understanding probably your energy and stuff like that? Where did that insight come from?
Well, I have been through counseling. I do have a counselor, so I've been able to gain a lot of insight there. But even before, I didn't start counseling until around, I think, 2014, somewhere around there. When you've grown up with no access to any information anywhere, like one plus side of my childhood is I was never taught about slavery. Okay. So I did not have any understanding of racism.
Yeah, because that comes up.
Why? It was weird to me. Like, what? When I got out and I saw like segregation. So even in the 80s in the South, in the town I moved to, Martin, Tennessee, a little tiny town, and then we were poor, so we lived in a trailer park, and there's a road, and here's the poor black people, here's the poor white people. So there's still this segregation, but we're all playing together. Like, my brain couldn't understand it, and nobody explained anything to me. Like, the first time I heard a racial slur, I remember asking my grandmother, like, what does this word mean? The response was, don't ever say that. It'll get you in trouble. Not, that's a bad word, and this is why. So I had to dig in, like, not until I got into college and took American history was the first time I learned about slavery, at like the age of 20.
Oh.
But there's a great...
sheltered, isn't it?
Yeah, so I look back, though, on that, and I was like, I'm grateful that I wasn't taught racial hate in that arena.
And that does get taught.
Yeah. So... But, you know, I mean, there wasn't a lot of people of color in the cult. I think there was one time a guy came from Kenya when they were starting to build a compound there. I also want to tell you something too. Yes, and the Indian guy, who, by the way, went on to work at the military base. So you see, we were taken to the military base. And I have some very fascinating memories that I didn't write into Cult Child. Because they're going in the book I'm writing now. And I wanted Cult Child to really focus on the abuse, right? So I didn't go in too much to the way we lived, for instance. I purposely focused in on the abuse so that people could know what it's like for a kid. But there's all of those oddities that I'm still fleshing out and writing about and figuring out as far as memories go. But yeah, that's one thing they did not teach us, but they did teach us the story of the Tower of Babel in the Bible is when all these people suddenly woke up and they were all speaking in different languages. Like, this is what the KKK uses to justify racial separation. It's in the Bible. Right. Happened in the Tower of Babel, you know. So they did
What is that story of the Tower of Babel, just for the listeners, like? It's because I know it's
I'm going to be super vague. It's like they all woke up and they were speaking in different languages. And so because of that, that was God's way of telling them they all had to separate into different tribes.
Okay. Yeah.
But they used that as, see, like, you shouldn't be around secular people. Like, if you go out into the world, right, you're leaving your tribe, and that's where all the murderers and the rapists and the killers and all of that are out there with the heathens. So this is an example of how different people use the same story to justify their horror. The KKK uses it to justify hate and racism. The cult used it to justify religious separation from non-religious people. Anything can be used for terror. And that's an example of that for me. So I just had to dig in, man. I had to dig and dig and dig and pull. It's like an onion. And I don't know if it ever ends, but I was always...
Did the book help? Like, was the book cathartic, or writing your poems? Like, did that kind of give this cathartic release that was, like, that psychological release?
Yes. I've always been you probably chuckled at this part in the book where I always wrote as a little girl, but they wouldn't let us, and I would be scared, but I'd chew little pieces of paper in people's faces. This is a weird defiance. Like, you don't know that I wrote what you didn't want me to write, and I'm chewing it right in front of you. And knowing that, like, if they say to you, like, what are you chewing on? Spit that out. You're good because your saliva has dissolved the ink. That's like all the freedom that you had. So, yeah, it just, and, you know, I think giving us the grace to morph and change, because I'm not who I was 20 years, I'm not even who I was a year ago.
Yeah.
You know, and finding out more and more. But yeah, I came out of the cold highly curious. Like, we had so many moments that you'll find when you read this book, when I finished the sequel, like, we didn't know how to count change or shop in a store, really.
Yeah, and like, 'cause you went in so young, like, at least Jeremy and stuff was like 9, like, he would have had some probably socialization, kind of normative culture. You were so young, so it must have been like very
But
alien.
I wonder, and my brother and I were so close. He passed away in 2021, but we were just besties, and we talked a lot about this because his memories were so clear. It's a double-edged sword. It's like, am I a little bit lucky to have this dissociative periods where, like, I'm protected from those memories, because he didn't really have a lot of blanks. At 9 years old, he was brutally raped and brutally beaten, and he remembers it clear as a bell. See, so it's like, who had, you know, it's very important that survivors do not play the comparison game. I can't tell you how many times I've had a trauma survivor say to me, well, you know, you had it so much worse. Don't say that.
Yeah.
Because
Trauma's trauma. Like,
trauma is trauma, yeah. And really what matters is, how is that trauma affecting us today in our behavioral patterns? I mean, and that's what we should focus on the most, right? How is that affecting us? So we can't change the trauma. We can't change, well, we can work a little bit on the delusions it causes, which is like agoraphobia, or, you know, constantly
even
feeling
what you were saying, like the smell of Wassels brandy breath, like, you know, what you were saying, them triggers, like, you know, that stuff you'll carry for the rest of your life, smelling sweet alcohol on someone's breath. Like, and I think smell and sound tend to be fairly, like, get really deep into the memory's core.
They do. It's like super somatic. I saw, you know, I do a lot of things, though, because one thing I notice I struggle with the most is, like, my nervous system. You know, getting like this.
Oh, yeah.
We just hold so much in our nervous system. It's like, the book, The Body Keeps the Score, was extremely life-changing for me. So there's something. Because when I read that book, that was the first time I understood the link between trauma and the physical body. It explained so much of, like, fibromyalgia I was dealing with, right? I didn't understand why. So I used to smoke cigarettes. So I had to quit smoking cigarettes. Like, it pushed me on this healthier path of what I put in my body, knowing that I already have trauma toxins in my somatic system.
Yeah. And that's psychosomatic.
Totally.
They call it psychosomatic,
Yeah. The one thing that I do love to do, it's a little pricey, so I don't get to do it a lot, but I love float tanks, and I love sensory deprivation so much. I've retrieved memory that way. I tend to do it with intent. I love intentional meditation too. Like, I want to try to remember this thing. So
Yeah.
that led me into meditation too. Was meditation and memory retrieval was very closely related for me, where would sit and try to pull some things out. And then I also was real lucky to have my brother and sister, because I was very cautious with influence. So like there's some memories that my sister holds one half, I hold the other half.
Yeah.
Like for instance, she remembers harp being built. And I'm like, you can't remember that because they didn't start building it till the 90s. And she was so adamant. She's like, bullshit. I remember don't you remember us driving to the mountain and the big windmill things? So there's just little fragments we have that we're still to this day, she's in her 60s, I'm in my 50s, that we work to put together.
Yeah.
But yeah, being healthy is my number one. And when I say healthy, that doesn't mean skinny and fit. That means that you wake up intentionally. You're intentional about what you listen to, what you read, what you watch. I live my life day to day at this point, putting my nervous system first.
Yeah. And like being great, like gratitude. I see, like, you do have another book. It's Becoming Gratitude.
Yeah.
But I even get that. I get a feel from talking to you. I don't get a feel of, someone that has let the trauma define them. I think it's someone that has somehow worked through it, and it's just, I just get a vibe from you. You seem positive. You seem grateful. You seem clued
I have my
in.
moments.
I
I mean, like, I can be a bitch and I can cuss a mofo
Yeah.
out. Like, don't get it twisted. I have that side of me. I just, like, last year, I kind of got pulled in a situation where I saw that side of me coming out. Does that make sense?
Like more
Where you're like,
frequently.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's something we have to look at. I had to pull back and look at that and was like, okay, being connected with this certain community is bringing out like parts of me that I don't want to be. It's
Yeah.
making me angry. They're not good people. They're
I think that's called
slimy,
self-awareness, though, because a lot of people,
right?
like, they're
Yeah,
on
but I
Twitter
think when
or
we
X
start
commenting.
projecting, I can
Yeah.
project. I mean,
Yeah.
let's just keep it real, right? We all
Yeah.
can project. For me, like whether I let someone stay in my life or not is not if they project. We all do that.
Yeah.
But what happens afterwards? If they have self-account, me, if I screw up, I will say it. I shouldn't have said that thing. I shouldn't have acted that way. That was shitty. I'm sorry. And I try not to do it again.
Yeah.
That's where my
That's
key
self-awareness.
is. Yes, is like, I don't care if you screw up. We all screw up. But I do care if you have loyalty, if you're trustworthy, right? Can I share my heart with you and you're going to hold it as sacred as my sharing is, even if I'm angry?
Yeah.
And if you don't, if you slip, do you have self-accountability? Yeah, I did that thing. I shouldn't have done it. That was really crappy. If there's not that there, you and I have no more connection.
Yeah.
Because you don't have any self-awareness. You're just going to gaslight me and continue to make me the victim. So I think once we figure that out, and also, here's a big trick I learned. Having self-accountability completely wipes out shame. When you go, yep, I was pissed that day, and I raged,
Yeah. Yeah.
and maybe I shouldn't have.
Yeah. See,
What
like,
can someone say next?
we know from psychology, there's like so much people will displace blame. Like, people are really good at, like, it's denial, displacement, projection. People will do anything. I think they're ego defense mechanisms is what they're called in the psychological literature. But people will do anything other than, acknowledge culpability or blame. And I think probably like the highest level of self-actualization or kind of maybe ownership over yourself is, I think it's exactly what you said there. It's it was wrong. Actually, it's accountability for the self, not for the world or the
Yes.
situation or anything, but it's
And it
for
feels
me.
good.
Yeah.
It
But people
does feel
avoid it.
good. I know,
It's
because
painful, I think.
shame, I mean, what a great full circle moment we're having here, because it loops right back to that shame, which is the thing that cults use to hook you in, right? When you stop being ashamed of who you are, because like, what is perfection? Somebody says, oh, are you your perfect self? Well, maybe your perfect self is when you're just like honest with yourself. And you're not going to I'm not going to live in shame. I refuse to live in shame. I just won't do it. So anybody who thinks that they can manipulate me with collateral, come
barking
for
up the
me.
wrong
Because
tree.
I'll just be like, yeah, I was pissed that day. Plus, people have to remember when we share our pain, if you share your pain with me, you're trusting me. You're
Yeah.
handing me the most fragile part of yourself, whether it's your pain or your anger, no matter how you spew it. And so I'm holding that in my hands. What I do with that's on me. So when people betray us, they take our sadness, our pain, our anger, and they try to use it as a weapon. It really doesn't have anything to do with us. And we have to remember that. And that also wipes out shame.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
not
because people
responsible
will,
for what someone does with
yeah,
our pain.
yeah. That's the thing. I think like the more psychopathic personality traits will use that as opportunity. And I think that's what we
Yes.
see with Scientology. We see with a lot of these cults, for the want of better words, like they use it like that collateral as opportunity. That someone's pain, someone's secrets, innermost thoughts, whatever it is an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to manipulate further down the line.
Totally.
Male, cajole, whatever, to whatever needs they deem necessary.
And
You know,
using it to pit like families against each other,
yeah,
even in cults. They'll, the husband feels this way and they trick you to get you there. Talk to me, Brother Bob. What's going on with you and your
yeah,
marriage there? Nancy's not cooking enough. And then, Sister Sarah's over there. What's going on, Sister Nancy? That's the other thing in cults. You cannot trust anyone. No one. So who are you going to even share your pain with on a cult? Because they could take it and go to the elders, right? So let's say I was going to plan to run away. Well, I had to make that plan on my own, right?
yeah.
Because who am I going to trust outside of
Can't.
Lori?
Yeah.
Right? You can't. And it's a very scary space to be. And it's just, I will be passionate about this until I jump off this planet. But I'm going to live to about 150. That's my plan.
Yeah.
So I'm still
Give me
going to
the
be around for a
secret.
while. Yeah. But I mean, really, one person that I really love, and when I was going through the cult circuit, I spoke at a couple of cult conferences for ICSA, but I met Jan Heimlich. She wrote a book called Breaking Their Will. And
Oh,
I just love her. And that book is so good because what it goes into is how religion and the physical issues of hitting children. Like, it's not just psychological. I deal right now. I might have to have jaw surgery because of head trauma I had as a child. 2 years ago, I had to have my whole nose reconstructed because it had been broke so many times in
deviated
childhood
sex.
that it all collapsed. We
Yeah.
never escaped the physical trauma either. Like, stop hitting kids. Just like, can we start there?
Yeah.
Just keep your hands to yourself. If we could just start there. And that's what Jan does. She goes to, I'm not sure what she's doing now, but at the time, she was traveling around to churches and, kind of extreme spaces and just saying, hey, let's start here. I'm not here to attack your religion. I'm not here to attack your philosophy, but I want to
And is
tell
her
you.
background, was she like a cult survivor? Is she like an academic?
Her grandfather, he is the one who invented the Heimlich maneuver.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry for the
yeah.
listeners, I
So,
was
but she
joking.
has more of a medical interest
Yeah, okay,
with the
wow.
kids, and and that's why I liked her, because I was like, wow, you really pinged in. And the other one who I just adore, this woman, is Yanya Lalich.
Yana
She
Yonich.
did the first study. You should have her on. She's, first of all, great to listen to. I got to
Yeah.
hang out with her. We did a conference in Alaska, and she so graciously just came up there on her own. Such a great lady. But
Yeah.
she did the first study on kids and cults, and she wrote a book called Escaping Utopia. And I think there were 16 of us in this study. Read the book because I
Yeah,
don't know if I
okay,
have
that's
my numbers
definitely on
right.
the
And I will
list.
forever be grateful to her for caring about the kids, for
Yeah.
writing a book from a sociologist standpoint. I think she might be a psychologist or a
In
PSYD.
that kind of related field in around there.
And it is so good. And she took all of our stories and just showed the patterning. of kids and what it does to us. And it's called Escaping Utopia.
Wow.
Very good book. And she has a really good Instagram too. It's, I think the Lawless Center. She has her own center where she works with cult survivors. But she'd be a great guest for you.
Brilliant. I'm just writing down
Very
the Lawless Center.
engaging. Yeah. She's done, I mean, I would say alongside Rick Ross, she's done the most like productive work.
Yeah.
As far as like really directly connecting with survivors and knowing how much therapy we need. That's a problem. People get out of cults like trying to find therapists who are cult informed. I got very lucky to get a PSYD, and she wasn't even taking new patients. And the reason she took me is because I was a cult survivor and she was interested, curious, right?
Yeah.
But I look back at that and think, God, if not for her, I might have been left languishing.
Yeah.
In a
Unresolved.
very dark period of my time when I really needed some guidance. A hard part of my life was when my children graduated high school and went off into now they're adults.
Yeah.
And I slid into a very dark depression. Because who was I? I'm not a mom anymore. When you're a mom, you can push trauma aside.
Yeah.
Now
That's
I
when you
was
slip
facing
into
it.
different identities. Like, because I think mom is an identity. Well, it's I think a lifelong, but I know what you mean, like the direct care and all that. And that's like you'd really like they're the big defining moments. Is when we go into these new identities. Like it could be new dad, and then it could be old age, it could be retirement. It's complete different settings, identities.
And then even how it affects our children too, because like the cult, like I was so terrified my children would be molested. Like when they were young, it was like I was a helicopter parent, right? Everything is really, really skewed when you are a parent who's been molested and haven't had counseling yet.
Yeah.
Everybody is a monster, a possible monster, but at the same time, you're like not seeing certain traits in people around you. It's just very confusing, and therapy should be available to more people, because if people just had little tiny tools and someone to say, hey, that's not crazy, that's normal, that's normal for a trauma survivor to feel that way. And like I wasn't quite sure how to be a mom to adult kids. Like, who am I now? I'm not grandma yet. I'm still mom. Like, what's now my identity? It was invaluable to have my therapist. Yeah. Like, my sons would send me texts that I would need to, like, write back. I wasn't sure how to word it. And she'd be like, well, what were you going to say? And I'd tell her, she'd go, right? But if not, and we need that. I do see that there's a lot of great therapists that come on social media, like Dr. Heath is one on X, who runs therapy spaces, right? And he's very open about who he is, so you can verify he's an actual doctor.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people playing one online and they're not. So that is helpful for people who can't get to therapy, but that is something too I'm passionate about, is like more therapists need to lower their rate and be willing to see you for $50 an hour instead of $150 an hour.
That's the thing, because it's such a critical part, mental
it
health.
Is. That's where I got language.
Yeah, that's it, and understanding. Well, Vennie, I feel like we're halfway through this story, so I think when that next book is gone, we'll hear, life since, because it seems like you have a lot. I think there's a lot of kids there, grandkids, but I think that whole healing journey as well, because I think, so I think we're halfway. So hopefully when that other book, or even if the other book maybe before it launches, whenever, you'll come back on and we'll go into other half.
Yes, I think that is a really important part of the story, and I'd be happy to even sit down and talk about it even before the book is out. I don't mind.
Definitely.
The transition from the cult through the world as a teenager. What an odd dichotomy. Hey, thank you so much for having me on and caring about this story. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, and look, it really means a lot that you come on, share your time. Like, as I was saying, I found your story so moving, earth-shattering, and I think what really brought it home for me as well is like the pictures at the end of the book. Just seeing like actually the kids and what the real people. You're reading this story, and it's still a bit abstract when you put it all together at the end of the book, all them pictures. So again,
Really?
yeah, it
Huh.
just was so. It
I
was
never
more
had anybody
visceral.
tell me that. That's great
Yeah,
feedback to
because you,
know
you you have
that.
all these ideas of what people
Uh-huh.
look like and stuff, but it's seeing then the human face that was at the back of
Hmm.
this trauma, or that was committing these acts. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, look, thanks so much for coming on. And again, like I'm
Thank you.
sorry all that shit happened. Like it
Dude,
must
we
be
could talk for
awful. But
hours. I know. It'd be like a 4 hour show. You know
yeah,
what? I mean, right now, one of the tasks I've given myself too as I move forward in life, I'm kind of like getting into that point where I'm ready to move a little further past the trauma,
yeah,
where you're not like, is like, okay, what good things did I learn? Like,
yeah,
what are the gifts that I received from this terrible situation? Well, I can survive. I was given survival training. I can skin
yeah,
an animal and build a tent and
yeah,
start a fire. And it allows you a great sensitivity for things, but it also makes being in the world hard. Like, I
yeah,
don't really like people that much.
yeah.
And it's not
Because
because
they
people
let
are
you down.
bad. It's because probably I don't understand them, maybe, right? But like, I don't like to people. I get overwhelmed with energy. It just
Yeah,
strips from you. There's a comedian I love named Chelsea Lynn. She goes by Trailer Trash Tammy. Here's an example. So she
yeah,
came here to my city to a little tiny comedy club. I wanted to go see her so bad. I
mm,
couldn't find any because she's raunchy, right? So I was
yeah,
like, well, you go. She's raunchy. The thought of going to that by myself, standing in the line by myself, finding a
yeah,
table by myself, then leaving in the darkness by
mm,
myself to my car, would have to park in. All of that shit begins to roll in your head, and you're just like, I ain't going. So it
yeah.
takes away your safety
Does yeah.
for the world.
There's lingering, residue almost left on the psyche. But yeah, look, I'm already looking forward to the next one, Vennie. Thanks so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on. We're
Thank
halfway
you.
through. Part 2 will be coming soon.
Yeah, yeah, let's do it. I really appreciate you so much.
Yeah. Oh, look, right back at you. Thanks a mil.
All right. See you later.